want to show you a video, just a very quick video, because we're going to the BOE risk event, and I want to show you a volume profile, and I want to show you a pitchfork chart, and also I'm going to quickly show you a Dixie chart as well. Let's maybe start the Dixie. So we do have some supply of it ahead, which you can see, but we had a nice Fibonacci support at 93.83 there. So when I was talking about the Fib support, these are actually comprised of Fibonacci diagonals. The Zoop indicator doesn't do the traditional horizontal Fibonacci, it does diagonal, because it's basing on the angles of the descent or ascent if it's going up. So there's the calculation there. So this is the 38.2. You see how it's exactly the same angle. If I drag that, there you go. So you see how that came into play here. And you wouldn't have spotted that without the Zoop indicator. So it's definitely worth getting. It comes at a cost, but it's totally amazing. So there's your support there. Resistance at 94.12. It could come into play, and we've got this pretty big hurdle to overcome as well. So some levels there, 94.12, 93, 83. So there's the Dixie. But hopefully you understand the logic there and how that will support. So it's pretty useful. Right, now sentiment, I want to just quickly talk about that. It's a bit tricky because what's happening with the pound USD is that we're seeing a little bit of momentum on the selling, and when that normally happens, it's fairly tricky because it's like an express train. It'll take time for it to slow. There's some momentum behind the selling, and they seem to have gone a little bit sideways. So I think there's going to be a little bit of weight there still, and whether or not they're going to hold on to that bearish bias. If they hold on and this average line ticks down, we will go up and we'll get the stop loss cluster above at 137. The stop loss cluster below is at 136. So it's dead easy to remember, but I think this momentum is going to carry it, and this might even cross the 50% line, making it a buy. The reason for the ATR indicator is that it's very useful if you want to see what happens after the SLC probe. So I'm anticipating that to get probed at 137, and that's why I've got this all loaded up, ready to go. When it gets to the SLC, which I believe it should probably happen because I think there's a bit of momentum there, it should then impact this ratio, and then it will become a sell because it will take in that liquidity, right? So what I do when we get that SLC, which I think is fairly likely, I will then go down to a very small time frame, and then I'll check the ATR. And what will happen is that if it's taken the SLC above, we should see a decline in volatility, and it will tell us that they've got their lunch money. And I know with a very good degree of confidence that SLC got probed, and then we can see a reversal. However, if the volatility increases, then it will want to get more liquidity, and it will continue to go up and take stops. All right, so I'm anticipating the SLC to get probed above, which looks fairly likely because we're above monthly pivot. So that bias changes at 136.53. All right, so that we are close. Below monthly pivot, I'm going to be short. Above that, we've got a bullish bias. So that's just a bit of a sentimental look. I think there's a little bit of momentum behind it, and I think it's going to carry through, and we're going to see some follow through. I think it's going to push up and get that liquidity because it's BOE and they are going to be hawkish. I think there's no point denying the fact that they are going to be hawkish because interest rate hike is pretty much on the card. So I think that's likely. It's only 40 pips away, and then once it does, I'm going to move to a small time frame and take the ATR and see if they're done the school bullies, and I think that could be that's the objective, right? So that's just a little look there. I don't want to make it a long video. For a daily view, we had the bearish dragon, so that's going to be resistance anyway at 139.95 and support 136.11. Resistance at 139.04. We break 136, we'll target 133.47. Now that's worth mentioning as I wrap up the video, is that 133.47 has a confluence with the volume profile. Okay, so remember 133.47 and 133.92. So okay, there's 50 pips it's difference, but there's a little bit of confluence in that area where there's a little bit of room to maneuver. Whether or not that's going to hold, I'm not sure, but 133.92, 133.45-ish could be a good target if you're bearish, right? So you do want it below monthly pivot if you're going to sell it, and you're going to be bullish above monthly pivot. So it's really important that you've got the indicators that tell you the monthly pivots, because it sets the precedence for the rest of the month, because we've got some time left in November. The longer it holds above, the stronger it will be, and the longer it holds below, the stronger it will be for the bias. So if you can check the diagonal here, you know, it's a fairly good sell. We have seen some big selling, and we had this supply above as well. So yeah, I guess we'll wrap up now. The Dixie is looking quite strong, and the Euro USD is probably worth mentioning because of the fact that it's, you know, the #1 currency pair traded in the world, and we are selling heavily. So if this falls, it will impair the pound USD. Your monthly pivot is 115.93. Your signals are saying to sell, the sentiment saying to sell, and they're going long, right? Okay. Admittedly, you know, it was telling us signs that it was going to sell off, but yet we rallied anyway. But that's just, it was FOMC, so you have to expect the chop and the volatility. So sentimentally, technically, it's looking good. Fundamentally, you'd have to check your S&P and you'd have to check your VIX. For the QuasiDB customers, you need to come to the dashboard, scroll up, and then you want to check your VIX. This is live. This is from Google Finance. It's updated every minute, so it's very accurate. Assuming that we hold above 15, it could be risk off, but we see the risk sentiment, and for every one person buying risk, i.e. indices, S&P, Dow Jones, there's 17.8 people trying to short it. So it's going to be unlikely that we're going to sell off, because these guys are going to get paid, and that's a very, very heavy bias for upside, all right? And if for those guys who are in the QuasiDB service, it is worth mentioning the -20 was the limit. So we're getting quite close to being very, very squeezed for the retail guys. And beyond 20, -20, then I think we will see a correction where the retail guys will get paid just a slight amount. At the moment, they're getting destroyed, okay, especially if we go below the 15. So fundamentally, it makes sense for the dollar to fall, unless we are seeing a reversal in risk. So this is why you want to check the S&P whenever you're trading, or the Dow Jones, okay? The bubbles, making this fairly long video. I didn't want to make it a long video, but the USD is very close to the strong buy. Once it does, then it can be a wrecking ball for dollar CAD and dollar Swiss and dollar Kiwi dollar. At the moment, there's a big battle going on between these two, which is understandable. I think the dollar could win, but it's quite tricky because the pound USD is above monthly pivot, and there is a little bit of sentimental bias to upside, where I think we're going to get the SLC above. So just trade safely. Remember to know where your exit is. I use the monthly pivots. Admittedly, I get stopped out a bit, but then once it goes, it really does go, and I'm up like hundreds of pips. So it's fairly painful as it gets chopped up and down monthly pivot, but inevitably it pays off, because you know, you capture the true move. And the monthly pivot is what I use, what I recommend that you guys use as well. So the key is not to let your losses run, because then you know you have big losses, and then it just gets horrible. So I'm going to wrap up now and see how we go. It's going to be very choppy today, but as long as you know where your exit is, it won't be a terrible day. It could be a very good day. But as long as you're not having a terrible day, that's the key, right? So I'm going to wrap up now, and I'll speak to you later. And there's the pound USD, which you can pause the video on if you need to, or subscribe to the QuasiDB service. I'll speak to you later.